It's not about who's going to let you do something. It's who's going to stop you from doing something.
Ooh.
And honestly, as a female leader in IT, you have to have a higher level of emotional intelligence. You're
Wow.
held to a higher standard. I didn't think it was great that there was comments about the fact that I had an undergraduate degree in communications, and people thought that meant I was not qualified to be a CISO. There wasn't an information security program when I went to college. So find your people. You need the people around you to get to that role, and you need the people around you that will be there when the bad times turn.
She did all of this wearing red bottoms. All right, my superhuman, why haven't you subscribed? Make sure you click on the link below to subscribe. Thank you. All right, now welcome to the Superhuman Mindset podcast. My name is Felix Asare, and today, honestly, guys, this woman just blows my mind. So not only is she a woman in cybersecurity, which is one of the most male-dominated fields ever, she has risen through leadership. And when I say leadership, in the highest of the highest. So in cybersecurity, the top is more like a chief information security officer. Just in the last 5 or 6 years, she's held 3 of those roles: Clorox, Elevate Textiles, and now Baker Tilly. And you know what? She did all of this wearing red bottoms. That usually doesn't go hand in hand. So, Amy Bogac, I am excited to have you on the Superhuman Mindset podcast. Welcome.
Thanks, Felix. It was so good connecting with you, and I'm really excited to be here with you today as well. I'm open and ready and trust you to pick at all the vulnerable parts of me and hopefully share a different look inside behind the scenes story a little bit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's kind of start with the softball. Did you grow up thinking you'd be where you are today?
My parents, if they were both here, they would tell you a funny story that at kindergarten, I didn't go to school. I went to work.
Okay.
And the table that you sit at in kindergarten, that was not the table. That was my desk.
Okay.
And I set up all my stuff around, and everybody had to sit at my desk with me. So wow. I think I definitely had a strong work ethic and desire to, kind of work and be in corporate America from a very early age. But that's a funny story that not a lot of people have ever heard.
Wow. Well, shout outs to your parents. So what I hear you telling parents right now is the kids that are ordering us around, we should just allow them to be. What would you tell them?
Be very aware that your words have power, and it is more important now than ever to understand why you say the things you do as a parent and how it may affect your kids. I definitely have things I wish I said to my 3 kids differently. And the best that I can do now, knowing what I know today, is just tell them how much I love them and how proud I am of them. But I can see where the power in the words that you say, and making sure you understand like the subconscious, the unconscious bias of some things you say, because that may come back and affect the way you or your kids look at life. For me, I always remember either a feeling. I don't remember ever being told this. I don't remember being quoted this, but I always remember the feeling that it's not about who's going to let you do something. It's who's going to stop you from doing something.
Ooh. Who is going to stop you from doing something? Let's double click on that for a second. What does that mean to you?
Yeah. Don't ask for permission always. right?
Wow.
If you ask for permission, you're seeking other people's influence, you're seeking other people's approval, right? So that's the way I look at it. I typically don't usually ask very much for permission. Make no mistake, I'm a very good corporate citizen and I follow rules really well, but I typically have enough confidence in whatever it is that I'm doing to move forward. And if I get feedback along the way, I'll adjust, but it's typically about making sure if I see something or if I want something, I'm just moving forward. I'm not asking for other people's approval or attention.
So then to grow into roles like the ones that we find ourselves in and being a woman, I'll pick on that a little bit. Well, two parts I actually want to double click on. You mentioned 3 kids. So let's put a pause there. I'll come back to that. But then not asking for permission. How do you ensure that you're not coming off as arrogant?
It's a fine line to make sure you're seeking as much information around you. I also really love the way I describe it, so others can also learn. I love the Simon Sinek of it all, the why.
Okay.
I don't tell people that all the time. I tell people that when they ask questions like this. But I personally do subscribe to collecting as much information as possible. And then when we're prescribing a direction we're going in, helping people understand why. So being super, again, intentional. There's that word again. You'll hear that as a through line for sure in my story is intentional. And I think that's the success part of it is if you know why, make sure other people know why you're going in a particular direction.
Wow. And then talking about having 3 kids, how do you do this as a mom?
100% with an amazing support system. I am lucky enough to be married to my very best friend, who is also an IT leader and understands the wave of emotion that come with being in, really operational based roles, 24/7, being on calls, throughout the night. So those are fun pieces. I don't think the kids really enjoyed sitting at the dinner table and listening to Shop every night. But they definitely appreciated that we connected and that they, were part of our journey as well. So
that's amazing. I know there's a quote by a guy called John Wooden that says, "Don't mistake activity with achievement." And you mentioned intentionality. You on the other end of achievement. When I look at you and I look at what you've been able to accomplish, just even in the last 5 years, most people are still struggling to find jobs. So what activities did Amy do to really solidify where she's at today?
There's a couple things I did very intentionally. The first thing is we always had dinner at 6:00. And I learned this very early on when my youngest was 4 and my husband was ready to kill me or leave me because I worked at a job that was like 80 hours a week. But if you made an intention to sit down and have dinner, you were always connecting with your family, you were always prioritizing them, and I think they remember that. There's a lot of stories that we tell now 20 years later about, dinner time stories or who was at dinner or which of our kids brought their friends and we felt like they lived with us because they were always in that same moment, that same memory of dinner every night. And even today, I know that helped us stay connected as a family, even through lots of careers and kid cycles and, what everybody goes through. Because today, as adults, they all share pictures of the food they're eating or making at home. We all we all live in different places now. My husband and I are in North Carolina. One of our sons and his family live in Northern Illinois. One of our sons and his girlfriend live in Central Illinois, and our other son and his girlfriend live in Ohio. And so we don't see each other all that often, but almost every day we share pictures of something, and oftentimes it's food. So they connected with that, and it's very intentional that my husband and I made a point that we would be home for dinner. And so I think that's a big piece of success, and how you balance out things. It doesn't have to be dinner. That might not work for you, because especially as kids get into activities in high school and everybody's going 100 different directions, finding whatever that one moment is for you, even if it's just on Sunday dinner, right? Just find one thing that you can do with consistency and being very intentional about it. And then that also translates with your team. If you build that type of relationship with the people that are most important to you, you're going to immediately extend that to the people around you. And so I would say a lot of my success has been because I really focused on having the very best team that I could have around me. And that doesn't mean that the teams that I inherited or the teams that I built always had the best performers, but it's working to understand and how to get the best out of everybody in the role they're in, meeting them where they are in their careers, and having entry-level people at your team as well as expert levels on your team, and being able to meet each one of them wherever they are and helping them, guide them through what's next for them. And it's my favorite conversation, is what's next for me and what's next for somebody else.
Oh, I would love to dive into that part. And Michael J. Fox says this. He says, family is not the important thing. It is everything. And I think you are a huge testament to that. Yeah, a lot of people, I started by even talking about your successes, but I've also seen that you've gone through some tough times. How was family? And you were on one side doing phenomenal things, higher leadership level, leading great organizations. And then you had downtimes. What was that for you?
Yeah. It's a little bit of a story to get there, Felix. I say, because everybody's journey has, highs and lows.
Yep. Wait, it's not straight? It's not like, it's like a straight line?
Nope. It's not a straight line. It's not even a hockey stick, and I love hockey. There is absolutely ups and downs. There's absolutely up and down. When I look back at my journey, a couple things and a couple pieces that you and I've touched on. When I chose to leave companies, I truly still believe that I can internalize why I left each role that I left along the path. If it was because the female leaders above me that I looked up to were choosing to exit a company, I definitely stood back and said, if everybody around me that I look up to that looks like me is choosing to leave, that's a sign, right? And I started to look at those signs and take, kind of not wait for the really difficult times in your business relationships to get to a tipping point. I took that feedback along the way and started looking around the corner at why were those female leaders leaving, and maybe this wasn't a place that would foster what's next for me. And I made choices like that along the journey. I left a company, like I said, because of the way, as much as fun as I was having in the role that I left, my husband was ready to kill me or leave me because I did work so hard and 40 hours a week it was a consulting company. And it means you have to be present in order to get ahead. And I chose to leave. I chose my family. I chose my sanity at the time, to be fair, at the same time. And then along the way, it did become about what was next for me when I had very clear intentions about setting goals for myself. So did I want to lead a program end to end? That was a choice that I made when I took my first CISO, head of security role at CF Industries. Was I chose to take that role because I wanted to work at a publicly traded company. I had my 5 things. I wanted to work at a publicly traded company. I wanted to lead a program end to end, move out of security operations. I wanted to report to the CIO or higher in the organization. I wanted to have exposure to the board of directors at some level for some degree for my own development. And I wanted it to be 15 minutes from my house. Those were my 5 things.
Talk
And
about being specific.
I was, and it wasn't a CISO title, right? That's okay. But that's one of those things you have to do. All those things sound like a CISO role, don't they? But it wasn't a CISO title. And I was okay with that. So it was another one of those. And I left a Fortune 5 sized company at the time. Right.
Wow.
So you kind of have to pick and choose where in your career you want to go, but do it with, if you do it with that level of intention, that, those very specific things, when you take a step back, it doesn't feel like you're taking a step back. If you move to a smaller size company for a bigger role and you're intentional about it, you won't feel regret. You won't feel like it wasn't the right move for you because you were able to fulfill all the things you were working to achieve. I also had the most fun building that team, right? Wow. It was a great experience to be able to put together a team, understand all the different pieces and parts of an organization, and be able to help others grow in their careers and move from one side of IT into security or back. Hiring unsuspecting people or people that didn't look like me, did not come from the same background that I did, knowing that you had to intentionally build a team of diverse skills also means you bring diverse people and diverse perspectives to the table. And I loved those pieces and parts, and they helped inform me as well. But it's funny when I think about that job, the team always laughed at me, that they could hear me coming down the hallway in my red bottom shoes. And they could tell if I was in a good place or if I was in, stressed, something going on, urgent. They could tell the cadence of how quickly I was stomping around in my red bottom shoes. And wow. that was my secret. That was my superpower, right? Because now I'm in this role. I got what I wanted because I was very specific about what I was trying to achieve. But of course I had imposter syndrome. I had only been a director of security operations. I had not done any of these other things before. And for me, I just found something that always gave me a lift or always gave me that extra power. And that was my shoes, my red bottom shoes. They are definitely a signature if you've ever seen me present in real life or speak in real life, and you have, Felix. And so, yeah. But the teams that have worked with me, even the ones that I got to work with, before remote times, they definitely would remember me stomping around in my red bottom shoes.
So definitely create something for you that reminds you of your image and who you want to be. That is amazing. Now, when you found yourself in down moments, Amy, if you were to list 3 things that you did that really got you back up, what would you say those are?
My down moments, Felix, have been some really, really dark times.
Wow.
And I don't know that I always brought myself out of them well or with elegance. I definitely wish I had done some things different, and I'll share with you a few of those examples. I'm very close to my family, like you said.
Yep.
I definitely attribute, a lot of my personality and my my confidence and my ability to do whatever I want as by the way I was raised. I do feel like both my mom and dad told me I could be anything, and I believed them. I could go to work in kindergarten if I wanted to, and that was fine. And they were a huge force in my life. And my sister and I, if you interviewed my sister and I together, she and I would have very different experiences, right? She's 5 years older than me. Her experiences do not match mine. We've had this discussion before. And I appreciate that she's the older one. So she probably paved the way for some of the the experiences that I got from my parents different than she did. When we lost my mom in November of 2023, I did not grieve. I don't know if I didn't know how. I don't know if I didn't give myself permission to. I was the CISO at the Clorox company at the time, and I felt like that was a very, very big career moment for me. And I needed to lead through it. That's the story I told myself, that I needed to lead through it. And hindsight is, I wasn't the best version of myself after that, because I wasn't being authentic to my own feelings. I wasn't grieving the loss of my mom. My sister and I both were very focused on helping my dad transition, through the loss of our mom. And we did those in different ways. My sister was always in Chicago with my dad, and I appreciated that. And I'm in North Carolina, so I flew back and forth as much as I could. But because we were always trying to help him, I don't think my sister and I really processed through, the grief, the loss of our mom when she passed. And so that's, a loss that we had that didn't serve me very well emotionally. One of the core components of a strong leader, especially in IT, is being emotionally intelligent. And honestly, as a female leader in IT, you have to have a higher level of emotional intelligence. You're held to a higher standard. Doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. Felix, I'm sure you believe you have been through those situations as well. But there are times, as the minorities in the room, we are held to a higher standard, either of our organization skills, but definitely of our emotional intelligence skills.
Absolutely.
And so that was a challenge for me. And the end result was, by not grieving my mom, I was caught really, really off balance when my dad passed away. And that was 9 months later.
Oh my God.
And it was a huge tipping point for me that you can't have emotional intelligence if you aren't taking care of yourself, right? If you don't know how that's affecting you and your ability to manage all of your emotions. Unfortunately, that also happened at the same time as I was leading the team through a major event at Clorox. So put three major, catastrophic moments in time together, and it really does become, how do you define resilience for yourself?
Yeah.
And honestly, I took myself out of the game. It was just one of those, no, I have nothing. You have to know your limits. You have to put your hands up and say, there's not anything left for me to give to anyone else externally, because I have to pause. I have to pause here.
Wow. Queen Elizabeth the second has a saying where she says, grief is the price that we pay for love. And I'm sorry that you had to go through the loss of your both parents within a year. That's a lot.
It has taught me to process difficult times intentionally, right? Back to our word, intentional.
Yep. Intentional.
You have to be intentional about processing through your stress, your grief, your crisis, whatever it is. It could be a crisis. You could be fired. You could, end a relationship. You could, I know that I'm not the only person to have experienced loss and grief.
Yep.
There are many people close to me that have had even more difficult relationships that they've lost. The loss of a spouse. You can't even imagine. My husband is my rock. I could not imagine having to, kind of be resilient through the loss of a spouse. So I just find that you can't know what everybody's going through in any one moment. And you hope that you're surrounding yourself with people that will be empathetic. Again, I do think it's part of my authenticity that I am a little bit more transparent. It's just part of how I am an emotionally intelligent person, by sharing what I'm going through, so that people, have a level of understanding where I'm at.
Yep.
Because I think that does inform strong relationships, right? And, we have professional relationships that we have to maintain and manage. And, there are people who say we don't talk about these things in work, right? So we'll get to the sticky part of your superhuman mindset. We're not supposed to talk about this stuff at work, Felix. We're supposed to show up and be professional, and that's it. And when you are taught that, you don't process your grief. You show up back to work on Monday, right? You take a phone call on the day of your dad's funeral service from your boss, right? Jeez. Those are like two pieces of who we are in 2025 in this professional culture. And I want to change it. I try as much as possible to be transparent about what I'm going through, at a professionally communicative and, kind of professional relationship development way. I don't need to overshare. But if I'm having a tough day because it's the anniversary of, of my parents' wedding anniversary that's coming up in a couple of weeks, that will be a difficult day for me.
Difficult day for you,
and I will want to tell stories because that's how I show love and respect for them.
Yep.
But it also helps, remind people that I'm still processing through this grief, this journey. It will take a long time.
Wow. I've seen and I've heard a lot of people talk about grief reveals you. Mm-hmm. And I think what you are hitting on right now is exactly the habits and basically the habits that we end up building because of the roles that we are in, that make it become our personal reality. And then, of course, it's our personality, right? So we don't even realize how horrible those habits have been stacked against us until something as big as that hits you. Then it reveals all the things that you have underneath, which is not good. Right. Recipe for disaster. Right. Even grief in the other sense of, I've seen lots of layoffs happening. A lot of people have lost their jobs and they are still looking. I know people that have been looking for over a year. That's a huge level of grief. I was talking to one of my guests and they mentioned, it was not until I lost my job when I got laid off that I realized that I did not build any personal relationships or any other relationships outside of work, outside of the company I'm in.
Right.
Which brings me to a question for you. Even though in your eyes, you did not pick yourself up well enough, you still landed. How did you get there?
Yeah. And Felix, thanks for asking. I love to share my current story. Like, how do I help people? A lot of people ask me this question. But first, I just want to amplify the point you just made.
Yep.
Losing your job is something you need to grieve. It is a component of your professional life that, as humans, we can't separate those out. Corporate America wants us to.
Yep.
But I go to work and I am still in the same body as when I'm at home.
Oof.
I can't stress enough that if you have lost your job for any number of reasons, that is a thing you have to grieve. If you have not had any other major loss and if you have not learned the process of how to grieve and you don't let yourself grieve, that will hold you back. And it is one of the things that I try to coach a lot of the women that ask me for mentoring right now, who are going through this. You have to process that grief, because if you go to a recruiter or you talk to an interview as a candidate and you have not let go of that grief and that anger, they will hear it. I got that feedback. And it took it very, very hard in the moment, but it was probably the most important feedback I ever received.
Wow.
I was trying to recover from the loss of my parents, leaving the Clorox company, and unfortunately for me, having to deal with some press that was, depending on your view, not so flattering at times. Clorox CISO flushes self always gets a good laugh when I remind people that was one of the headlines in the online media that I had to deal with as part of, going through this transition of my life. And so there was a lot of things that I had to process through, a lot of grief that I had to process through, not just the loss of my parents, my sister-in-law, and, a number of things that had gone on in my life, but, moving past, the role so publicly. And I wasn't ready. And I had a recruiter tell me, "You're not ready. I can still hear you're angry about this. And because I care about you as a human," this person told me, I have to tell you that I'm not moving you forward for this role that we were talking about because you're not ready.
Wow.
And that knocked me down, but it is something that I have carried with me. And I might not say it that directly to some of the women that I get to mentor right now,
Yep.
but I do try to find a way to reflect that mirror back by asking, are you ready? Right? Do you know the root cause of why you're not in that role anymore? And are you willing to let that go, or, not let that define what's next for you? So I find that a lot of times people are spending time trying to find a new role with a whole list of things they've done in their past, instead of turning the mirror and looking for the future. So right now, a lot of my career coaching for people who ask me that question, how did you pick yourself up and move on? And how did you find 2 great new roles since then? It is because I was looking forward. I knew, again, similar to what I told you about, like having my 5 things, I knew what my elevator pitch was. I knew what my core desire for what was next for me. And they were different than the 5 things I told you before, right? Because now I don't want to be at a publicly traded company. I'm much happier with a lower risk profile of a privately held company. Right? I am happy, leading a team of people who want to grow, and I love building things. So, with those are different than, the things I was looking for 5 years ago. And so I try to help people see, and really get authentic with, what do you want to do now? Not what have you done? Because everybody comes to me and tells me, without fail, I will listen to somebody tell me 10 minutes of what they have done and why they deserve the next role. It isn't about what you've done. You're going to get that conversation because that's on your resume. It is about, what do you want to do? Like, turn the focus on what do you want to do, because you have the skills to help deliver those things. And that's when magic starts to happen. You also have to use your network, right? Your network is not just your LinkedIn connections. It is showing up to local events and sitting next to Felix at lunch and having conversations and getting to know people, because that's when doors open for you to have new conversations, and people will remember you or they will recommend you. I do get an opportunity to share people's names often. I'm not looking for a new role, but I know many people who are. So I take that very intentionally. When somebody sends me an email, I respond back to as many of them as possible. I say, thank you for your interest. I'm not looking for a new role, but here's 3 names of people I think would be a good fit for you. Wow. And they may be people that are in manufacturing, or they may be people that are in financial services, or they may be people in retail. And, it's really just kind of helping make connections for everybody, because I know people did that for me, and I'll never be able to say thank you. And I'll never know all the names, all the times that my name was shared. So I just try to pay that forward and do that as much as possible. And then the last piece is, kind of be ready for what's next for you. Enjoying these moments, getting on a podcast with Felix, sharing your story. The last 2 opportunities that I've had, both at the Baker Tilly opportunity that I'm in now and the Elevate Textiles opportunity, was because I was spending time in the community. I was offering to share my story, my lessons learned, and I was mentoring and helping as many people as wanted to talk with me. And that is how I got these 2 opportunities.
Wow. I want to take a pause and then say, guys, if you are listening to this and you have not subscribed, please make sure you subscribe right now, because the gems that Amy is dropping, we want the world to hear this. Now, back to you, Amy. And I'll try. This is probably my last 2 questions for you, because you're running out of time. What was it like? So one person is to the left saying, I want to be working at this company with all of these 5 lists, 5 checklist items. You're excited about it. You get the job. And then fast forward, you are getting bad press. Your name is on the news. How did you even discover that, by the way?
Well, Felix, we're in security operations, aren't we, sir? If you don't have a Google alert set up for your own name, shame on you. Shame on you.
Oof.
If you're in security and you do monitoring of any sort of intel and threat intelligence, then you absolutely must have a Google alert set up on how your name
Absolutely
comes
have it
up.
set up on my name and my family.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Yeah.
So that's how you got it?
It is.
Ooh.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow. And what did you tell yourself?
Oh, I went through the valley of death, right? Again, the grief curve, the valley of death, change management, right? There was definitely moments of everything I had built was shattered. My confidence was definitely shaken. Embarrassed. I will say that. I'm going to give you the goods here. I was definitely embarrassed. That is not where I ever thought my name would come up in the newspaper. Never did I ever think I would be in the Wall Street Journal or my name would be in Bloomberg. Nope. Those were not things that I anticipated. They were definitely blind spots. And when you take the CISO role, you know, if you're aspiring to achieve that level, any C-level role, any executive level role, it comes with this balance of being publicly commented on, about, or scrutinized.
Wow.
I think LinkedIn has a great opportunity for people to share their views, their opinions, but it also means that you can do that from behind a computer screen and not have to look somebody in the eye and see that your words have an impact. And they do. And so you have to choose to filter some of that information. I didn't think it was great that there was comments about the fact that I had an undergraduate degree in communications. And people thought that meant I was not qualified to be a CISO.
Wow.
Okay. There wasn't an information security program when I went to college. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it is really about kind of letting yourself go through that grief again, right? Grieving that moment, that reputation, and choosing to be resilient personally. I knew that I could not be my authentic self for all the women that I mentor if I did not come back from this. Ooh. I have told people so many times that they can overcome these ups and downs in their careers, that if 2 years ago I chose to sit back and not press on, that it wouldn't be authentic to myself, all the work that I had done for my own career, but I absolutely felt like I was not being authentic to the women who looked up to me and looked at me as a role model. And that is also very important to me. And so there was no choice but to keep going.
To keep going. And I think that is a great ladder that you set up right there. One of my mentors told me, Felix, if you are ever thinking about getting into leadership, think about the people that you are going to push up and the people that you are going to pull up, because the people that you are going to pull up will give you a place to stand on. And I think that's exactly what you did. My last question for you before we close this out. If Felix is thinking about getting his first CISO job, knowing everything that you know right now, what would you tell the Felixes of the world? How do they prepare?
Find your people.
Oof.
Find your people. You need people around you that will help you when you're in the role, when you get the role. You need the people around you to get to that role. And you need the people around you that will be there when the bad times turn.
Wow.
First and foremost, again, lucky enough to be married to my very best friend. Could not have done any of this without him. The highs and the lows.
Wow.
Could not be in the seat that I'm in if I had not embraced the network and shared my story with people to help them. 100%. My intent was to share my story as much as possible, so that people could look around the corner and do everything they can to prepare for, what it's like to live through a major security incident. But then it's also about the people that are in the role with you now. So find your people. They will be there before, during, and after.
Wow. And when you do get into that role, how do you ramp up? How do you get up quickly? Do you still continue to find your people?
We're going to have to come back and do the 100 days discussion, Felix.
We'll have to come back.
Because that was one of the conversations that you and I had about, and maybe even like bringing a couple people together that talk about their journey, their first 100 days journey. Ramping up quickly is so much fun. But I know that I enjoy it because I can geek out on the technology stuff if I want to. I can geek out about red bottom shoes, and don't even get me started about watches. But what I can tell you is that I love business, and I love being in a new company and learning about why the company has the vision mission that they do right now and where they're trying to go, and building a security program with inputs from what the business needs, not just all the shiny things we can do in security, is so much fun.
Wow. Oh, I think we're going to have to do a part 2 of this episode, because this is good. This is good. Amy, are there any last words you'd like to share with that young girl that is telling mom, come sit in front of me right now because this is work?
Yeah. This is, have fun. Find what you have fun doing. I remember distinctly the moment I wanted to get into security instead of just IT and IT leadership.
Yep.
I sat back and I said, when was the time and I was having the most fun in my job? And it was when we were hunting bad guys. And this is like in 2010. And I was part of the first security team for the Kellogg company. We had so much fun building that function. And so just when you have fun and you have passion, you have success, because your happiness is intrinsic.
When you have fun and you have passion and you are intentional and you find your people, Amy, this has been amazing. I can't wait